Ice cream. Summer is almost here, which means it's time for America's favorite warm weather treat. Today we are going over French style ice cream using strawberry hibiscus ice cream with rose pistachio brittle as a template. With the right technique and equipment, you can make the best ice cream you've ever had right in your own home. So without any further ado, let's get churning. Before we make our base, let's make our mix-ins, starting with our strawberry jam. We're keeping it super simple today. We're going to start by combining 12 ounces of chopped fresh strawberries. You can use flash frozen if fresh aren't in season. The zest and juice of 1 lemon. Teaspoon of hibiscus powder. And we're using a 1.5 tablespoons of wildflower honey, but you can use whatever honey fits your palate. Then we are going to set this saucepan over low heat. And we are going to reduce it and mash it slightly until it resembles a thick, chunky jam. Fish out that lemon zest and refrigerate until you're ready to make your ice cream. Next up is our brittle. We're going to start by toasting 6 ounces of rough chopped pistachios at 350 degrees until they're lightly browned. This will take about 8 minutes. In the meantime, spray a parchment-lined baking sheet liberally with non-stick spray. When the pistachios are toasted, it's time to make a caramel base for the brittle. In a larger saucepan than you think you're going to need, combine 1 cup sugar, a 1/4 cup water, 4 tablespoons unsalted butter, 2.5 tablespoons of light corn syrup, and put the pot over medium-high heat. Standard caramels shouldn't be stirred because it can cause them to crystallize and seize. In order to stir them, you must swirl the pan and use a pastry brush and water to brush down the inside of the saucepan. However, this caramel is essentially unbreakable because of the corn syrup, so you can stir it with no fear of it crystallizing. Stir it frequently to make sure it cooks evenly. You want to take the caramel to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, but if you don't have a candy thermometer, you can go by when, as the name suggests, it turns a light brown caramel color. If you are having trouble determining what the color of your caramel is, carefully spoon a small dollop onto a white plate. This will make it much easier to determine the actual color of your caramel, as sometimes it's hard to tell inside the pot itself. At this point, we are about ready to stir in our baking soda into our caramel. This is what allows us to bite into our caramel without absolutely shattering our teeth. The flip side of that is it will cause your caramel to aerate and fizz significantly. Don't panic, this is why we selected a larger than necessary pot. Just add it in and then stir it all the way through to make sure it's nice and combined and you don't get any clumps. Just make sure you turn off your stove before stirring in the baking soda, because otherwise it will overflow the pot and you will have a molten mess on your hands. At this point, it is imperative to work quickly. As the caramel cools, it will become harder and harder to work with, so we're going to stir in our nuts quickly, and as soon as they're combined, we are going to evenly spread out our brittle mix onto our sprayed parchment-lined baking sheet. They don't even need to be as thoroughly stirred in as this. This is not a time to be a perfectionist, because once this brittle cools, it'll become impossible to work with and you will have to start all over. So we're going just right on to our baking sheet. And as you can see, I was probably not quick enough, because pretty early on, the spatula snapped on me because the base was so thick. However, as is the mantra with our brittles, do not panic. Just spread it out as evenly as you can. As long as it's not much thicker, than the pistachios itself, you will have no problem biting through it. Okay, so our brittle is now evenly spread, but still hot. So this is the perfect time to add on our garnishing salt. We're using a coarse rose salt, but any coarse salt will do the trick. Just sprinkle it fairly liberally and make sure that that brittle is still hot to allow it to stick. When your brittle has completely cooled, we're going to do our best Walter White impression and break it up. Make sure to break it into very small pieces because this is going to be mixed into ice cream, so we don't want any massive chunks in there that won't fit in a spoon. Your brittle will keep for weeks if kept in an airtight container, but you almost definitely will not be able to resist it for that long. Alright, with all that out of the way, it's finally time to make our ice cream. To start, we are going to bring our milk, cream, half our sugar, salt, and vanilla paste to a simmer on low heat. While our dairy heats, whisk the egg yolks with the remaining sugar until it becomes thick and has a bright sunshiny color. This is known as ribbon stage and will both protect the eggs from scrambling and provide a more fluffy final product. We are making a French style base, meaning that it is fortified with egg yolks, giving a rich and decadent flavor and texture. We'll be going over Philadelphia style, which has no eggs, in a later video. This is pretty much exactly what we're looking for. The mixture is thick and has the color of the sun in the Teletubbies. So at this point, we are going to take our milk and cream off the stove and slowly whisk it into our yolks, one ladle at a time. This process is called tempering, and it heats our yolks slowly, which makes them more resistant to scrambling. If we were to just add these yolks straight into our hot dairy, we would get the most delicious, velvety, sweet, weird scrambled eggs you've ever had in your life, which is something that I personally like to avoid in my ice cream. So just go slow, pour in one ladle at a time, make sure you are whisking constantly. You don't have to lose your mind with how aggressively you whisk, just keep it moving. If you have a few scrambly pieces at the end, no worries, you can always strain them out once your custard base is fully cooked. You certainly can add in all of your milk and cream and it will not harm your final product. We only need to do about half of our cream mix. Once we reach that point, we're going to put our saucepan back on the heat. Then using our rubber spatula, we're going to stir in our yolk and cream mixture. This is our custard base. It's important to switch from a whisk because we don't want to aerate the cream any further. If we did, we would run the risk of whipping our cream slightly, and this can give your ice cream a broken, icy texture, which is not what we want. Just as before, when we were tempering our yolks, we want to keep this mix moving constantly. We are shooting for our base to reach 170 degrees. I would highly recommend investing in a thermometer for this, but if you don't have one, it should roughly be the consistency of, well, melted ice cream. Once we've reached 170 degrees, we want to cool things down as quickly as possible. So we're going to pour our mix into a bowl set over an ice bath. If you have little scrambles inside your mix, don't panic. Just instead of pouring it straight into the bowl, strain it into the bowl. I generally strain out my mix either way, just to keep things easy and just to make sure that I don't accidentally make scrambled egg ice cream. Bowl is set over our ice bath. We are gonna keep stirring it just to make sure that no more scrambles form. We're also going to stir in our jam at this point. This will both help cool down our mix and make sure that our strawberry ice cream has a nice strawberry flavor throughout. this point, once your base reaches roughly 50 degrees, you can pour it straight into your chilled ice cream maker. But I prefer to allow my bases to rest for at least 6 hours covered in the fridge. This added time will allow the flavors to mature and the proteins in the eggs and the dairy to relax, leading to more of a silky texture. It's now been a little bit over 6 hours, so we are going to add our chilled base to our machine until it's the consistency of soft serve. Now this is a very fancy machine with a compressor inside of it, so it chills down the bowl as it churns. You can find much cheaper machines for less than $100. You just have to chill the bowl in the freezer before you churn. Our ice cream is now the consistency of soft serve, so we are going to transfer it to a large freezer-safe container and fold in the brittle and chopped dehydrated strawberries. This will add an extra pop of color and strawberry flavor. As with all of our videos, we hope you use this as a guide to make the ice cream of your dreams. All of our recipes are on our Instagram, and you can use this same exact ice cream base to make any flavor that you'd like. Please consider liking and subscribing. I hope you learned a little something, and I hope you had fun watching, and I truly cannot wait to cook with you all again soon.